We've read over 30 books about money.
And we're breaking down our top recommendations and the 5 types of books you should read if you want to build real wealth.
For each type, we're going to give you a few options so that you can choose the one that fits your vibe, your goals, and where you're at in your journey.
The first book that we believe you need to read is one that helps you understand the fundamentals of how people relate to money. So, for this, we have 2 options for you. The first one is a classic, The Psychology of Money. It's literally in the title. You know what you're getting with this book. So, reading a book like this is going to help you understand people and money. That's the people you interact with every day. That's maybe your life partner, even your customers or your clients. I feel like psychology is at the root of everything. And so it's not surprising that money, that's true too. I actually love the way that he put it, even in chapter 1. No one's crazy. And the point here really is that your money experience shapes so much of your perspective around money, right? So here it says your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. And I think this just speaks to how your original experiences are obviously going to impact your experience with money. And I think for us, that's been a really key way of how we've been able to build together because we understand like that fundamental psychology of money, but we also understand like what each of us have been through with money, how we think about money. And that really opens up the communication and makes it easy to have this partnership where we, mix the worlds of personal and business and really build something together. So why do we like this book? Obviously, we both are into psychology, so that's part of it. I think for us, it also really helped to validate our experience with risk. I love the way he put this. He said, luck and risk are siblings. So we have such a complicated relationship with what is luck, what is risk, what's risk paying off. And one of the things the book really got into that helped me was knowing that we don't know until after whether a risk was worth it or not. I think that really stood out to me in this book. And then the other piece that stood out for me is about staying wealthy is not the same as getting wealthy. And so I won't go too far into everything in this book, but I would say we are in the staying wealthy phase, and it's definitely has different challenges than getting wealthy. And I'm curious to navigate with you guys too on what those different challenges are and how we can kind of not screw up what we were able to pull off in our 20s.
This book is literally good for everyone. It is a mindset book, and I wish we had it sooner, to be honest. It's a really easy read. It's a little bit nerdy, but so interesting. Another option to understanding how people relate to money is Happy Go Money by Melissa Leong. I love how she makes you understand why you make the choices that you do and how we can make better choices moving forward without sacrificing our happiness.
One of the things that I really like about this book and why I would encourage you to check it out is because Melissa's a journalist. And I think it comes through in her writing because there are so many references to studies and stats and data. And I really like that because I love going off vibes too, but when somebody backs their personal opinion with a study, for me, that's just like chef's kiss. And she has really great ones that honestly stick with you. I read this book quite a few years ago, and there's certain studies that I still reference to this day because I think they're just such great examples of our relationship with money. She had a really great study in the book that she referenced, but the Coles Note version of it is that in the time leading up to a vacation, that's actually where people generally see the most happiness. Once you've booked the vacation, you know it's coming and you get really excited about it versus how people, claim their happiness levels are right after the vacation or during the vacation. It actually has a lot of the lead up that we really enjoy. Her book is just filled with these studies that will really help those lessons hit home, but also they're ones that are going to stick with you and think about when you make those money choices. Like us, we talk about getting some travel on the calendar, and we need to remember that the anticipation of that is just as important.
There's a possible trip that we're thinking of in about a year and a half, 2 years, and I've told everyone already that we're gonna do it, and I get so excited. So, and she knew that, so just even her planting that seed really makes me anticipate it. And if she told me like later, I don't think I would have had all this time to tell everyone and be excited for it and have this countdown. And I love how she's a Asian Canadian too. A lot of her references in the book I could relate to as someone who grew up with an Asian background in Canada. And I also love how she talks about you can still be happy with your day to day and build some wealth for the future.
Yeah, I'd say this is a really great read for anyone that's looking for a lighter, maybe more joyful entryway into personal finance without lacking the depth. Because what I really love about it is I'd say it's about 75% actually about happiness and understanding like that role in money and also just our life in general. But then she does get really tactical as well with what you should do as your with your money. Now, the second book we want everyone to read in order to get absolutely filthy rich in a way that feels good is a book that really helps you understand your personal money narrative. So we've kind of been getting into that, right? We were talking about the psychology of money. You know, Melissa's talks a little bit more about like us individually, but it's still really like how people look at money. So we have a few books here that will help you get even more specific to you and your experience. First up, we have Everything But Money, another Canadian author, Jessica Moorhouse. We actually went to Jessica's book tour with this book, and she shared a really interesting story that stood out to me. And she was talking about when she first pitched her book, that there was one chapter about what's inside of this book. And, you know, her team kind of came back to her and said, do you think you could write a whole book about this part? And she's like, I mean, I think so. And it wasn't until she started going into it that she realized like she has so much to say about this and how important this one thing is that often gets chopped up to one chapter of a book.
Your money journey is everything but money. Money is, okay, what is an ETF? What's a stock? Real estate? Sure, that's like definitions and strategies. But a lot of how you get into money and how you become successful with your money journey is the behind the scenes.
So she covers a ton of different things, different feelings around money. So there's subsections on a whole bunch of feelings. We have shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, envy, despair. All of those feelings you might have with money, she breaks down. And a lot of it is about trauma and money, which is something we talk about more and more these days. And I always like this example, even in my own life, of big T and little t trauma, and how, you know, sometimes there's these super traumatic events and that's what stands out. But sometimes it's the little t things. It might be, you know, the way your parents said something about money. So this book will really help you get into what are those behind the scenes feelings happening with your money.
And one thing during this book launch that we went to that really stuck with me for quite a few days, and I've even asked Mal and we've chatted and reflected a lot about it, is Jessica asks, what is your earliest money memory? And it made me think. I'm like, what is my earliest money memory? And then a few came down, and as I explored those memories more and reflected, it actually showed a lot of how I operate today, which was really interesting. My mom ingrained in me that if she wanted something, she could just work harder. She can work more hours, work overtime,
Mhm.
get a second job, third job. Like my mom just proved anything is possible if you could just work hard.
And it's funny, just like sometimes there's really deep ways that you see it play out, and sometimes it's just like little things you notice. We always say Josh's mom has always loved to see her money. So she wants the new SUV or whatever it might be. She wants to like spoil the family with stuff. And we see that translate with Josh. We joke about it, but like he loves to buy his gym stuff. He loves like the top of the line bike. He loves all the biking gear, but it makes him feel good about seeing his hard earned money in a physical form. And that's something you can note and learn, and it doesn't have to be good information, bad information. It's just neutral information, but it's helpful to know that so that the next time he's looking at a purchase now, he has that filter of going, okay, is this me just really like trying to feel successful right now that I want to grab onto something materialistic to see it? Or is this something that I really want to purchase for myself? I think this is really good. If you know you've got some deeply rooted things going on with your money and you're ready to tackle that, and not everyone is, and that's actually okay. Like sometimes you're in a position where you are better off learning how to start using an emergency fund than you are to dive into the deep stuff, especially if you have some pretty deep stuff under there. But if you're someone where, especially if you're maybe making a lot of money, but you still feel really scared to make those choices, if you feel like you still get a lot of anxiety around bill payments, even though they're covered, that's a good indicator. I know for myself, I've dealt with a lot of scarcity. I've done the work to figure out kind of where that comes from. But that's kind of had to come in waves of how I, you know, tackle that versus just learning investing.
Next up, we have It's Not About the Money by Scarlett Cochran. And I've been following their YouTube One Big Happy Life for quite some time now. We love a good reverse engineer, and her vision board framework is a perfect way for you to reverse engineer your life into how you can get to that life you want. We do this in pretty much anything that we do. You go for the goal and you work backwards and to connect the dots into where you are today, and that'll be your roadmap into how to get there. I love how this whole second part is about changing your money story. But I have so much debt. But I love having nice things. Or my favorite, but it's too late for me. And I love how she's just gonna walk you through exactly how to change that money story.
She also has a super inspiring story. She's a former lawyer.
Hmm.
She was a young single mom turned financial educator. She's honestly just like such a cool woman. So, our third and final book when it comes to this understanding your money story, which I think is so important. That's why it's a whole category. It's our number 2 of books that you should read, is one that helps you understand you and your money story. So, this is our third option. This is the thing with having a good go-to book list, is that sometimes you've lent them out. Some of our books just pretend it's here. Our next one is by my dear friend Elise, Keeping Finance Personal. And I feel like this book really stands out to me because it is one of the few books that through the whole book speaks to different identities and really incorporates that into it. And I think a lot of books maybe have like a chapter on it, whereas this book is really meant for people who feel that they don't fall into traditional money advice, whether that's queer, neurodivergent. There's a lot of ADHD conversation, even dealing with depression and how that plays into money.
I love a book that comes from someone with lived experience, and Elise herself has had debt. She's overcome it, and just for her to be in that situation, get out of it, and talk about it, I think is really powerful. She also has ADHD, and she gives a lot of tips for people who are neurodivergent, like how to gamify their things. It's something we've talked about in previous videos, and how they can use that to their advantage.
If you're feeling like, oh, I still hold so much shame around my money, or I still feel like I'm very all over the place with my money, this is a really nice transition piece into the money systems, the money habits, before we get too far into the tactical, which leads us into the third book that you should read if you want to be a silly little amount of rich.
So the third book that we recommend you read is The Tactical Know-Hows and How to Actually Use and Plan Your Money Effectively. First, we have Financial Feminist, where Tori talks a lot about self-confidence in ways that you can be in control of your money. From managing debt to starting a business or even negotiating a raise at your workplace. We also have Girls That Invest by Sim. She talks a lot about stock market portfolio investing and in a way that isn't too tech bro-y, but also still very simple. We also have I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. I love that he talks about your rich journey because everyone has a different version of rich. For one person, that might be $10 coffees. For another person, that might be a yacht, right?
And lastly, we have Financial First Aid by Alyssa.
What I love about this book that is different from a lot of personal finance books that I've seen is it really takes a deep dive into life's unexpectancies. She talks about how to handle a lot of things, a lot of curveballs that life throws at you, and it's a really good pickup. Hence, I guess, the umbrella with the rainy day.
And we'll show you a close shot, but I just love, if you go to Alyssa's Instagram, she makes all of her own illustrations, which is just super cool. She just taught herself how to do that. But the book is so colorful and so fun. Isn't quite a book, but it's also by our girl, Alyssa, Mixed Up Money. You might know her as on social. This one is the 100-Day Financial Goal Journal. So this is a really cool option if you're someone that likes something tangible and tactical to do. A lot of these books are going to be reading or audiobooks. This one actually works as like a money journal. So really great option. First, it's going to help you figure out your current context. So you're going to assess your financial life is how she puts it. And then it's like a recurring money journal. So your mood, your feelings around money, the challenges and successes, also things like your expenses that day. It's going to make you a little more aware of how much you're spending. So really good if you want something where you can actually be writing and give yourself like an accountable piece to go off of. So far, we've covered 3 of the books you should read in order to be as wealthy as you deserve. First is Understanding Other People and Money. The second book is going to be Understanding Your Money Narrative. And then the third is just getting tactical of how do you budget, invest, save, pay off your debt, all those things. Now, the fourth book we think everyone should read. This is our only one where it's actually one specific book. The one book everyone needs to read is Die with Zero. The goal with this book is showing us that it's not about dying rich, it's about actually living a rich life, which we love. Right on brand for us, right? Let me read you a little bit of Bill Perkins, okay? Bill Perkins is one of the most successful energy traders in history. He's also a hedge fund manager, Hollywood film producer, high stakes tournament poker player, and the resident Indiana Jones for several charities. So this guy was going through life making a lot of money and realized he had more money than memories and decided to do something about it. I am somebody that loves to poke holes in anything, right? I'm the like, what if, what about this? And what I love about this book is he is going to tackle every hesitation that you have. Every, what about this? Or that doesn't work because of this. He gets into it. And I just love that approach because it really challenged me in a way that I loved, because your brain is going, well, what about medical emergencies? Or what about this thing? Or what if I run out of money because I live to be so old? And he thinks about all those things and he addresses them for you in really like tangible ways. And I just super appreciate that in an author.
One of the biggest takeaways that we took from this book and concepts that we tell everyone, it's something that's called memory dividends. So just like dividends, they get paid out, or you just remember these memories as your life goes on, but these actually compound. So your memories of that trip that you did with your significant other, or last month when I biked 70 kilometers with my dad, I will never forget that trip, that event. And each time I think about it, each time we're going to reminisce about it, it's just going to be that much more fulfilling. So this accurately illustrates how, as the years go by, how each memory just provides more and more dividends as you go.
The more we travel and the more we experience life, the better we are at being a business owner, entrepreneurship, getting creative with our finances. So even though those memories sometimes feel like taking a step back to just enjoy, they actually are the things that often make you so much more successful in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me about the inheritance thing, because this is a point, I think this is maybe my most referenced, besides memory dividends, I think this is my most referenced fact from this book.
Okay, so this one actually hit. I'm a big numbers person, so it just made sense when he threw out the numbers. The average inheritance in the US is 60 years old. Like, you're a grown person by then, right?
Your kids may have kids.
Your kids may have kids. I have a personal example of my own. A family member of mine gave me a very small inheritance. It's not millions of dollars, but they wanted to give me and my cousins money so that we can enjoy it while they're still around. And it didn't drastically change my life, but it actually made a difference in the way we planned for this year and just how comfortable I felt going forward with some unexpected or unknown things this year.
Yeah, and Bill talks about like you can't be generous when you're dead because you are dead, even if you're giving money to people. And I think in Josh's example too, that person wanted to see him and his cousins enjoy life and actually spend that money versus it just sitting in their account until the day that they pass away. So I think that's a really big part of it. And I think it changes how you look at your relationship with money and community. I think we all need to like let go a little bit. I know that I talk about my scarcity, but I think it changes that relationship of help your community along the way.
Our motto as the In-Betweeners is live for today, build for tomorrow. And this book is the perfect book to give you the tools to live just like that. So who would you say this is for?
I think this is a really good book for anyone like me that loves to poke the holes, maybe a high achiever, a saver for sure, someone that hoards their money like I used to. Honestly, we probably need to reread it even, of just like doing all this work for the later version of themselves. Lately, we've been recommending this book to older people in our life, our parents, our aunts and uncles, because they're in that phase where they maybe do have that money, but they're not taking the trips. We're not saying, hey, give us all your money. But we're saying like, take the trip to Scotland, take the trip wherever you want to go. So good for that. Or if you're a planner.
Mm-hmm. The fifth book you need to read is one that will change the way you make money. And we have 3 options for you. If you're a business owner or have high aspirations to start and build something of your own, you should read this book. Profit First. It's our other must read, and it's written by Mike McCloskey.
Michalowicz.
Michalowicz.
Mike Michalowicz.
Who's Mike Michalowicz?
Mike Wachowski
Oh,
is
Wachowski.
from Monsters, Inc.
So Profit First is not only a book that tells you to pay yourself first, but also how to do that in a way to make your business more profitable and more sustainable.
Honestly, this is definitely the book that I wish we read earlier in our business journey. I think it would have saved how we approached our first business and saved our first business. But that's how she goes, right? We're just glad that we read it after because it did really change the entire way we approach our business.
One of the biggest frameworks that this book shifted was changing the old formula of revenue minus expenses equals profit to revenue minus profit equals expenses. This reframed framework helps you think of yourself first and having yourself in mind and building a sustainable business around that.
One of the examples that I really liked that he used is he has two lists of words. And he said, I'm going to show you two sets of words. One set describes a sinner and another describes a saint. The goal is as quickly as possible to determine which one is which. And so now when you look at these two sets of words, you're going to have a pretty obvious guess of which one's the sinner and which one's the saint. And that is what he refers to as the primacy effect. And so his argument when it comes to profit in your business is that you see profit after because sales plus expenses equals profit. So you think of profit as what's left over in the business. Whereas the way that he really flips that is you're thinking, I'm going to make this money, then I'm going to take my profit, and then what's left is what I can spend on expenses. And that changes everything.
9 day.
The other reason I really like this book that I don't think we talk about enough is we can really be martyrs in our business. And what I mean by that is, we glorify this like sacrificing everything to make the business of our dreams. This book kind of brings it back to actually a lot of what we see in shows like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, that it's not a real business if it's not paying you. And also you deserve to be paid. Like you are building this thing to be able to look out for yourself. Yes, you're taking risks and sometimes there's sacrifices involved, but we don't have to be such a martyr. We can be making profit off our business in the beginning. Who would you say this is good for?
Honestly, it's great for any entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and business owners, or anyone really who has inconsistent income. It just goes one step further from the pay yourself first model and thinking profit first.
I think especially if you feel chaos in the business or the behind the scenes, you never know how much money is left to pay yourself at the end of the month. This guy. And we have two other options when it comes to changing how you make your money. The first one is the 4-hour work week, and we won't get too far into this because I feel like this book's got a lot of coverage. But what I will say about this book is it can be really great to change you from that solopreneur mindset to thinking about how a fully functioning business works. It talks a lot about automation, delegation, how to trust the people on your team. The idea here is that you're building something big, but you're able to remove yourself so that you're only working 4 hours eventually.
Next up, we have Built to Sell. This book is a good reminder to build a business, not necessarily to sell for sure, but have that in mind so that you can create the right systems and processes in mind so you're not creating a job essentially for yourself. I love how the book uses a fictional story where the mentor would give them tips, they'd implement them and then go back for more tips till eventually they have a business that they could sell or that will operate and thrive without them.
Okay, we have two more surprise categories for you. Next up, we have books that are going to make you think bigger. And then lastly, what's actually on our personal finance reading list, which feels kind of rare. It's hard to find a new good personal finance book. So our next two read options for you are if you want to go on a more macro level and really dive deeper, I would say like nerd out on the economic side of things. So first up, we have Same as Ever, which is Morgan Housel. You might recognize him as Psychology of Money, who actually opened up this video on our book list. I want to read you a little bit from the sleeve of what this book is about. This is a book of stories about what never changes in a changing world. Timeless lessons about risk, opportunity, and living a good life. Rather than attempting to figure out little ways the future might change, study the big things from the past that stayed the same. A lot of people said they liked this better than Psychology of Money. I personally found it a little bit clunkier. Psychology of Money had a nice mix of like historical events and smaller anecdotes, and the smaller anecdotes really stick with me. This one is a lot of like history back to back to back, But like I said, a lot of people really loved it.
The next book we have was given to me by a colleague, and I'm super excited about it. It's called The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. It talks a lot about how empires rise and fall, and similar to Same as Ever, history repeats itself. Right, so they talk about a lot of economics on what indicators to look at. It gives you the history of how different empires ruled the world essentially and what led to their downturn and then the new world order. And I think right now it's really timely with the way the economy is going. It's just a way for me to keep my skates sharpened and just be on the ball and everything.
And our most exciting list is actually what's on our book list right now. So we actually just got sent a copy of The 5 Types of Wealth. I'm excited to check this out. In theory, it sounds similar to how we approach money, so we will report back if that's true. But I like the idea that it tackles time, social, mental, physical, and financial, all as types of wealth. So I'm really curious to get into this one. And then we have 2 others on our book list right now.
The next one is Quit Like a Millionaire. This is a book where I saw their story online and I loved that they're fellow Canadians who retired early with $1 million invested, hence the title Quit Like a Millionaire. And they talk about their journey and how to quit like a millionaire with no gimmicks, luck, or a trust fund required. So I'm really excited to dive into that.
And I actually came across a book when I was looking for some links for some of these guys for our reference material. How to Retire Debt-Free and Wealthy. A finance coach reveals the secrets, tips, and techniques of how clients become millionaires. This one's a Canadian book that definitely caught my eye. Curious about the tips in it. It seemed to have some great reviews. So I think that's one we'll check out too. If you've been enjoying our videos, we would absolutely love if you hit that subscribe button. It's a really great way for us to build our community on here and stay connected as we continue these different conversations around money.